can this just be easy?
Can it just be easy?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Or do you remember when we talked about that? Maybe we're sliding right into this now. I don't know. But do you remember when we talked about, or I shared with you, I remember the first time I was kind of discovering or discovered that it was totally okay for me to want things to be easy. That it's been a long time ago now, probably, I don't know, 6 years ago or something, that I remember going, oh, hey, I can actually ask for that. I can ask, I can ask God, the universe, God, I can ask that it just be easy, because I feel like before it seemed natural for things to be challenging. Mm-hmm. And it was like a light bulb that went off that was like, oh, actually, our intended life would be one of joy and of ease. That doesn't mean we're not having challenges, but I don't know, it was a real light bulb to be able to say, I would really like this to be easy.
For sure.
Not feel overwhelming.
Yes.
And not feel chaos, because that doesn't seem like that's a good fit,
It does not. And so it was like 2004, 5-ish when that realization came to me. Like, maybe not so much that I was asking for things to be easy, but I realized when they're really hard and I keep pushing, like they're hard, my experience has been, because it's something that it's like a door and I'm pushing. I want that door open. Mm-hmm. And God is resisting, like, no, you don't want that door open. You don't know what's on the other side of that door. Mm-hmm. And I keep pushing, and he's like, all right, we'll open that door. Mm-hmm. And I've never liked seeing what was on the other side. Mm-hmm. And so 2004 or 5 is when I realized, if I'm pushing and there's a resistance, and there's no really logical reason that there is a resistance, then I just back up. Mm. And if there is a logical reason that there's a resistance, I still might need to back up.
Yeah.
But if I'm pushing for something really hard, oftentimes I'll just back up and just be like, all right, well.
That's such a good lesson. Like, I'm just like getting it again. And maybe I'm so bad with time, because now it's making me remember things. Okay, so going back, maybe we shared this in the last podcast, but I share this a lot in coaching or opportunities when I've been able to mentor with my kids, whenever it comes up, because it was such an important lesson for me. And I think women in general. Did I share this?
Is this what we're talking about?
I don't know. We're going to. So, hi, everyone. I'm Angie.
I'm Rashonda.
And we are sister friends.
We are sister friends.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
So on our docket to talk about today was a continuation of last week's conversation about the upcoming election. And then, talking specifically, obviously, because we're women, what kind of things could we just make sure we're talking about from that perspective? I had actually been turned on to this book called Invisible Women by Sunshine, and let me mention her again, Sunshine Productions. She's our daughter, and she's doing all the video and all that jazz.
So if you're just tuning in, she's not like our daughter.
No, she's my daughter.
Yes.
And so she had listened to, and I think we did mention this last time, she listens to Call Her Daddy podcast, and on that podcast she heard about this book, Invisible Women. I got it. I was only able to get through like 10 pages of it without just being so shocked. So yeah, we actually did talk a little bit about that, about how I feel like I'm late to the game, right? We talked about that.
We did talk a little bit about that.
Anyway, so Rashonda got the book, and I knew it was probably unrealistic to get through the whole book, but I got through about half of it, and you said you got through about that much too.
About half, yeah.
Yeah.
Question. We can cut this out later.
Yeah.
Aubrey and I are going to go get some food.
Okay.
On a quick lunch date.
Okay.
So I'm gonna step out.
Okay.
Oh, have fun.
If you guys get done before I get back,
Yep, we know.
just,
Hit the stop.
All right.
Hey, you can probably talk to Abby.
I'm going to drop her
Yeah,
off.
see her. Okay, bye, honey. Bye, Obs.
Oh,
I love
fun.
you.
Bye, Aubrey.
Get your flour and your seed. So we got that book. Anyway, that's our intention, is to talk a little bit about that. But anyway, we had this weird intro, and I think we kept that in here. So you got a little bit of our how we warm up and talk about just stuff. And on that note, I started to share with you about, we were talking about knowing when we're pushing for something, right? Too hard.
Right.
Yeah. Recap that for us.
Yeah. So for me, like I said, like in 2004, 2005, there's some things that I just really wanted. And I'd experienced this before where I'm pushing for something pretty hard. And when that door actually opens, it's not what I want to see. And in 2004, 2005, it was one of those times again where I'm pushing, like, I got to make this happen. I got to make this happen.
Can you give me an example?
It was a business deal that I'm like, it's got to happen. It's got to happen. And it was definitely like this resistance that I felt, but I'm like, no, like, God, it's got to happen. And it's like, he's saying no. I'm like, no, please. And he's like, okay. And that door opens and I see what's behind it. And I see why it was hard. Like, he didn't want me to open that door and experience what was on the other side. Like, he saw the full picture that I couldn't see.
Always.
And so I learned from that point, if things are simply too hard, it's probably not for me.
Dude, that's so hard. That's a hard lesson. Okay, and that's kind of where we left off, was I feel like, yes, absolutely, those situations have happened all throughout my life, and it's been a progression of discernment and understanding and recognizing when that resistance is there, recognizing when God is trying to open doors or guide and give opportunities or not, or whatever it is. And that's such a hard lesson, because when that's happening, I'm much better about it now. Which is how we started talking about this, is that clear, like, oh, this doesn't feel good. It's way cool to be 57 years old now and go, oh, not that I'm perfect, but definitely where I go, I'm, because this isn't a good fit for me. This doesn't serve me anymore,
right,
or whatever it might be. It's a really, really great place to be in trusting myself and God within me, my inner guidance, to be able to trust that,
right,
for the decisions I make, and absolutely in my relationships too. So, and everything's relationships, as you'll hear from us, though, always.
Yes.
So I wanted to share that one example. So going way back to, I guess it was before Sunshine was born, or right after she was born. So y'all are gonna know these things about us as we go on with our podcast,
that we don't even know we're going to reveal.
We don't even know. Like, there's going to be all kinds of things that I didn't know about Rashonda. She didn't know about me. So I have not, my husband and I and our family stopped going to, so we are believers. Like, I have never been more in love with God my entire life. Like, I would rather talk about that all day long than anything. Like, I think it's super interesting to learn, like, about people's stories and their perspective, maybe why they believe what they believe, or I literally have no agenda. Has not always been my truth. Right.
Oh, okay.
Like 100%, like way back, which this is another episode. But, if as we're talking about things and you guys want to hear more about parts of our life, please put that in comments, and I mean,
we
so
can
far,
expand on some things.
So far we feel like we just really want to be open about everything. But we haven't been to church since right after Sunny was born, and she's 21. So, and that's, again, another podcast, a series of events. But for us, it was a really good decision. But one of the things I wanted to share in relationship to what we're talking about, many times people will call that what we're talking about. It's very challenging to say no. Maybe that, for me, that's what it's bringing to mind. Sure. I went through really probably a super long period of time of not knowing how to say no. And that relates to me being a woman and pleasing, and what is my job? What is my identity? All that stuff.
People pleasing.
But this particular one was a real shift in the rest of my life. So Todd and I were divorced for a year from each other and then remarried. And after we remarried, we led divorce care. I hope I didn't share this last time.
You did not.
Oh, Lord. Okay. So divorced for each other, remarried. And after we remarried, we led a group called Divorce Care through the church that we were going to at the time. And we did that for like a couple, maybe years at the one church. And then we went to another church that was like a sister church of this church
Sure.
in a different city. And we were leading that group, Divorce Care. So, you know, folks, we had 7 kids, you know, we were busy people, and doing a lot at the church that you can totally relate to, Rashonda.
Absolutely.
Doing so much at the church and loved it. Like, you know, this one night at the divorce care group, this one woman had been coming for a long time, and she's really unhealthy and going through a really, really hard time. But to be really honest, like I was getting to the point where I was like, oh my gosh, okay, she's here again. And, you know, like we walk through this whole thing that divorce care thing is suggesting. We share our personal stories. We never give advice, but we encourage, you know, healthy behavior and yada, yada. And it just like, it was not happening. And so I felt so drained. I felt like I did not want to be there. I felt like I was resenting her, like sucking up my time and everyone else's. And it was just gross. It wasn't a good feeling. And, you know, so I went to the bathroom, and that's where I get all my greatest, you know, downloads from God, it seems. But so I went potty, and then it was literally like there are 3 times in my life so far that if God had a voice that was audible, it would have been then. And basically he just said, you know, hey, I actually don't need you.
Wow.
So if you could, you know, feel free to step aside, Ange, because I can then put someone else in your place so the message was just, I don't need you anymore, and it's okay. Like, it's totally okay. I don't need you. And if you know, can step out of the way, then I can put someone else in your position that's ready to do this. It's not serving me anymore.
Sure.
You know, it's time for me to grow and go do something so I can make space for someone else. There's more lessons to learn in this space, but there's a lot more lessons elsewhere. So in so many words, that was super freeing. And it was really from there that I was like, okay. So I was so resentful and felt so yucky. And it was really just because of my own mindset and the things that I thought I had to be doing in order to be either right with God or right with somebody else, or for somebody to like me, or this is my responsibility. All those thoughts that certainly did not serve me at that time. So anyway, that was a big shift for me to learn how to say no, and all those ideas around it.
But how long had you and Todd been married before that year? I'm thinking.
Yeah, I know. So we say 34 years, which P.S. we just had our anniversary over the weekend, and we don't count that year because we say that year was probably worth like 10 years plus, like an additional 10 years.
Yeah.
Let me think, because Levi was born after we got back together, and Levi is 23. I don't know. So you do the math. You're better at it. 34 minus about 24 years, right?
Yeah. About 10 or 11 years you've been married.
Is that right? Yeah, that's right. That is about, yes, we were married about 10 years, and then we were divorced for a year. That's crazy. Not very long.
Yeah.
That's such a drop in the bucket now.
Now it is.
But anyway, yeah. So how do we segue then from that to if you think this is a good time to segue to being a woman in this book, Invisible Women? What you want to share with your thoughts about it?
Yeah. So when I was listening to the book, because I was a little busy and I was multitasking, but it just was a reminder of like so many things that I've experienced in my own health and things that I've been listening to for the last couple of years, you know, just showing how like for women, like studies aren't often done on us because, you know, we're on a 26 to 30 some day cycle, and that's kind of difficult.
To do studies on.
Right.
Or that's,
Yeah. Whereas men, you know, on their 24-hour cycle,
Yeah.
it's much easier. And so the studies are done on them, and things are missed in us, and we're often misdiagnosed and undiagnosed, and just all of the things that get missed with us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, what do we do? How does that change?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
the most impactful part.
the
so
most
far.
impactful part.
Yeah, I mean, for me, there was just so many things. P.S. That fly is back as our guest. We have a guest that's just going to come back every week. I don't even know how to put it into words because I just feel like I'm coming to the game so late. I know that you've been in this game, meaning you've been so much more aware than I have, really, Rashana. And I will tell you why, because I'm going to remind you on our walk, however many years ago it was, maybe 6 years ago, which is mind blowing again. But we think, do you know what I'm going to say? It was like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, or whatever, pretty early on in our dating, is how I like to say. We were on a walk at George Wythe or something, or Cedar Falls or something, and you were telling me about the time with your dad. Can I say this?
Sure.
Again? Okay. The time when you were working for your dad, and you were like, hey, there's some discrepancies here in these payment. Why is this guy getting paid more than this girl? They're doing the same job. And your dad, not maliciously, like, right? It's not malicious. And P.S. that's another thing that this book is really good about. The author's really good about acknowledging that for the most part, nothing's malicious. It's just this mindset, this ingrained the way we think. But anyway, Rashonda was sharing with me how you were doing the books for your dad, and this woman was getting paid far less than this man.
For the same job.
For the same job. You brought that to your dad's attention, and he said,
the women have husbands and people or guys to help take care of them, and the guys, they may have kids or child support or other things that they need to take care of. And that just blew my mind, and I didn't understand at all. And it was eye-opening to me when I was invited to testify before Congress.
Yeah.
And it's a thing. Like, there are many people who think like that, and they structure their pay that way. And I realized that then. I thought it was an anomaly. Like, how could this really be a thing? But it really is a thing. And he was not being malicious with it. It's
actually,
just,
he probably thought he was being thoughtful, right?
I think he probably did think that.
Yeah.
And so it was just eye-opening to see that there are so many companies still where people think that way.
Yeah, so that's what I mean when you've been so far ahead of me, for the reasons, whatever. And I wasn't, actually, because I wasn't in the workforce for a long time. Sure. I was home for 18 years, and so wasn't exposed to that stuff, important things. But when you told me that, it was life-changing. Again, it was like, oh my gosh, what? And I felt so dumb. I felt like, what? Wait a minute. How, first of all, how do I not know about this? And how is this legal? Like, how is it legal to do that?
Right.
It is insane. So I think reading the book for me, there was just a lot of things. It's hard to pull one thing out. There's so many, that's the thing. And I think that's probably what it's going to be. It's going to be a process of listening to this and reading, because we're both listening to the audiobook and reading, whatever works best. It is like little bites of it, because it has to sink in. Like, even just like, I don't remember what country she was talking about, but a lot of countries, actually, just the bathrooms, and how many bathrooms compared to how many women in these third world countries. And so women have to go to the bathroom outside, and the health issues that arise from that, and then the cost that comes from those health issues.
Right.
And it just it's not equitable not to provide what they need, so that those things don't happen. It's costing them more to not provide them. It's just so deeply disturbing. I mean, at so many levels,
It is.
I don't even know where to begin. So that's what I think it'll be. It'll be like this process of listening. And then, because it feels so big, which like the election, right?
Right.
Feels so big. What is there? What are we supposed to do? Here we are in the United States, and so far where I'm at in the book, she hasn't talked about the United States too much.
Right. Not yet.
UK,
Where I'm at as well.
the UK and stuff, but not the United States. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get to that pretty soon. But I sort of am waiting on what guidance, and maybe together you and I or the audience will have something to say as far as suggestions for ourselves and the audience on, or you probably know, Rashonda, like how do we make a difference when it's so big?
It is so big. I think one of the things is having conversations like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yay. Yes.
Because how do we know what we don't know?
Yeah.
And we don't even know to ask.
Yep.
And when we think about even the studies, when I first found out, like, oh, wow, so many medical studies are not done on women.
Yeah.
And like biologically, physiologically, we are very different.
Yep.
And so, just having the conversation so that we're aware of some of the things that might be going on with us that are different than with men, or that simply are not even talked about, even with our doctors. So that we're aware of some of the social things that are going on that, people don't think about. We go about our lives and we just don't think about them because we don't know to think about them.
Yep.
But they're still there.
Yep.
So
yeah,
I think that's
Thank
a big part
God.
of it.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for saying that. And we said that last week too, about having conversations around the election, around your dinner table or your coffee dates or whatever, having the conversations, being open to and willing to see things differently with no agenda, no trying to change people's minds, but really asking, being curious. Being curious is such a healing agent, to ask good questions and willing to see things differently. So yes, so thank you for saying that. I was thinking about the conversations, yes, to talk and ask questions. Just starting to know, we mentioned menopause stuff, I think we did last week, about how for the menopause stuff, for me, I'm 57, I haven't had my period for 2 years, but it's just my sisters who I mentioned before. Yeah. Hi, Jen. Hi, Erin. They another conversation, they turned me on to Dr. Mary Claire Haver.
Yes.
And then that was like eye-opening. 57 years old, guys. I have been to the OBGYN. No, like I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, because I take full responsibility for not understanding and not knowing my own stuff. Okay. Not to say that I wish my doctors hadn't maybe advocated or,
Sure.
whatever. But now that I know, I have told so many people.
Yeah.
Right now,
Yeah.
I told, you already knew, but I told like all of my daughters, my coaching clients, whoever I can, because now it's at the forefront of my mind, so I can make different decisions. I can make an educated choice. Yes. I've even thought of so I possibly might be having this hip surgery. Don't know. Keep y'all posted, but just got a cortisone shot today and hoping that I don't have to. I'm very homeopathic, holistic. Let's do everything we can before we have to do that.
Sure.
Pretty sure it's this impingement, but anywho, just that came to my mind today of if I have to have surgery, I want to make sure I have a doctor that knows about women.
Yes.
That being said, just because it's a woman, maybe a woman, doesn't mean a woman knows everything.
It doesn't.
Right?
It doesn't.
That's the other thing she talks about in the book, right? Because it's not just, which is the huge whole thing about the data gap, because we don't even know what we're missing.
We don't know what we're missing. Yeah.
My gosh.
Even with my own health. I mean, there's been women doctors and there's been men doctors, and, the doctor who, most recently was able to actually help me was a man. Mm-hmm. And he was amazing. Mm-hmm. And, so it doesn't necessarily matter. As women, a lot of times it is more comfortable for us to go to other women as our doctors, but sometimes it's the man who actually has the answers as well. So
yeah, and no throwing anyone under the bus. Again, even the women. So my women doctors, they're amazing. I've not had one
for sure
doctor that hasn't done a great job. I take 100% responsibility when I went into my doctor, who is a woman, had I known the questions to ask. So I just think we're so far beyond the age of anymore, and probably always, but certainly with the access we have to information, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And leveling that up though, right? Like, and leveling the idea to be my own advocate. I used to say to people all the time, my family, people I love, you have to be your own advocate until it comes to me. And then I'm like, oh, hey, who's my advocate?
I know, right?
And that's a
It's
thing, to
always
be a woman,
easier
you're someone else's advocate.
to advocate for somebody else.
Yes.
More so than ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm just super grateful. I guess that's where I'm at. I'm so excited about this book. It's super disturbing to learn the things, and yet I'm like, bring it on. We talk a lot about, you and I, about we are learners.
Absolutely.
And so I'm excited that, that I have this new thing that I can absorb and be better aware of for myself, my family, my country, globally, to do whatever I can. So it's a fun journey. It's a fun space to be.
Is.
It's very empowering.
It is very empowering. I mean, just the awareness and even just to know that people are talking about this, because there's so many things that go on with us that nobody ever talked about.
Yeah.
Going into perimenopause, I'm just thinking, like, at first I was like, am I dying? Do I have do I have like something majorly wrong with me? And it's like, I mean, I did have some issues.
You did have a few things.
I did have a few things, but I didn't know anything about perimenopause. The first time I heard perimenopause, I'm like, I think I was late 30s. I'm like, I'm not that
You do
old.
know that's pretty young, though, honestly.
It is, but it was the first time I'd heard, though, and I was just like, I don't know what that is. I'm not in menopause. Like, perimenopause, what does that mean? And it's like, okay, well, that's what perimenopause is. Now, there wasn't anything to talk about the symptoms of perimenopause, and there was nothing that was being done to treat my perimenopause symptoms. And so I had gone actually to the doctor, and I was just having all kinds of like digestive stomach issues. And my doctor had done a test, and it was the PA, and she comes into the room, and I'm just in so much pain. All I know is I need help. And she's like, Rashonda, you're pregnant.
Oh,
and
God,
I'm
I
like,
remember you telling me
yeah.
this.
And I'm like, I'm not pregnant, and I had to wait. I mean, I'm in so much pain. I really need help. But they wouldn't do anything because they were convinced.
Stop it.
That
I forgot about this.
Yeah.
And that is outrageous.
Yeah, they were convinced that I was pregnant, but I was not. And I knew I was not pregnant.
Right. Hello.
And so, yeah, they did an ultrasound and everything, had to wait till the
my
doctor
God.
came back
Plus,
from...
P.S., you're paid for that, for them to do all this? When
Right.
you said, I am not
I
pregnant.
am not. And so they're like, no, our tests have never been wrong in 12 years. And so I had to wait until the doctor came back from lunch. And I am just in so much pain, I can hardly move. And they do he does the ultrasound. And I'm like, there are no babies in there. And he's like, nope, they're not. And, then he starts to see tell me what he's seeing. And I still then, because I guess it's their protocol, I don't know, they still wouldn't do anything for me, because even though you could see that I was not pregnant, they sent me home with nothing because there was a possibility.
No.
I ended up in the emergency room that night after,
crap.
I know, right? And you think about it, like a woman, late 30s, early 40s, comes in with the symptoms that I was having. Your test is thrown off and shows that I'm pregnant. Obviously, I'm having ridiculous hormonal problems. Ridiculous. Like after you do the ultrasound, all the things, you can see there's some hormonal issues. They were never addressed. They were never addressed.
I'm all over the place with my thoughts right now
And it
about
took
this.
me, that was 2016. And it wasn't until 2022 where, after like so much research and literally suffering
For your own.
Yeah. And fighting for myself, it took all these years, because I just did not feel like the drastic protocols that they wanted to take were all that there was. And I just felt like it
What
was
was
not
the
right
drastic
for me.
protocols they wanted to do, may I ask?
We'll just do a hysterectomy and take
Oh,
your
yeah, right.
uterus.
Yeah,
And I'm
okay.
like, yeah, uteruses are not or should not be just disposable. It's not cancer.
Okay, so if anybody's catching the threads that we're talking about here that have everything to do with, in my opinion, the book and the things that we're learning and the data gap, but as well as the upcoming election.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, keep going.
So
I
it
apologize.
took me 6 years to find a treatment that was not like removing my uterus, because I just was opposed. I did not think that that was absolutely necessary. I just knew that there had to be something else. And I just wasn't led, like I just didn't feel like God was saying, you need to do this. And so I'm like, nope, I won't. And there were several doctors that were not very happy with me, but like, it's my body,
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when I found out about like the UFE, the uterine fibroid embolization procedure, in 22, it took
Because
me.
that's what it was, right? They did know that at that time, that it was fibroids, and they're
They
like,
knew
no,
that.
we're just going to take your uterus out. It's fine.
Yeah, you don't need it. And I was told that
And you were how old?
well, the first time
36.
the first time I was told I was 34.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, so went all this time, like just trying to figure something out. Finally, 22, I found out about the UFE procedure. And as you know, it took me until May of this year to actually get through the process of insurance and all these things to actually get that procedure done. And literally, it has been life changing for me. It's like I actually have my life back all month long.
Yep.
And I have my uterus,
Yeah.
all intact.
Yay.
And non-invasive,
Yeah.
and it's just like,
I mean, everyone should also know that you did everything. Like this woman, what an inspiration, you have been. Something that we share as far as our friendship is our, desire to take care of our body and to be healthy, and always learning about what's the best thing or how can we do better here. So you were doing all the things. You were eating just wonderfully. You were doing fasting. You were working out, doing all the things. So it wasn't just like your nutrition was on point. You're working out.
Acupuncture.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot. And then all the things, and obviously prayer, meditation practices. All the mind, body, spirit stuff.
Red light therapy. Every single thing. Yeah.
And now you were like this new woman.
Absolutely, like life back.
But you had to fight so hard for it.
So hard. And the interventional radiologist, that's who does a UFE procedure. And I had it done in Iowa City. And he just said to me, he's like, congratulations, like kudos to you for advocating for yourself. He's like, because so many women need this. So many women don't need a hysterectomy. Yeah. And he's like, so many women need this and they never get to this point. So he's like, anyone that this could be a benefit to, he's like, tell them. Yeah. And literally, as you can see, like I've got this little bitty bump right here. That was it. That's where they went in and did everything amazing. From that little space in my wrist.
So you are a living, breathing example of advocating for yourself, asking the questions, asking friends questions. You were always really good to ask me, what do you think about that? I didn't know though. Now I know, thankfully. Yeah. I wish I had known then to suggest things, but now so you can suggest those for other people.
For sure.
But surrounding yourself with you being your own advocate, number one, but also having a team of people, like that's become really important to me. And I didn't have one before, but now like you're part of my team. You were, but now like we're smarter. we're better able to help each other make better decisions. Even my daughters, so share with which one of my daughters is a nurse. My son is a PA, cardiac surgeon. The people that are in medicine and things like that can be my advocates already, like telling them these things that they actually didn't know, help them be better.
Yes.
So it's cool. What I was thinking about though, in relationship to the book and the election coming up, and why I know that I'm going to vote the way that I'm going to vote is because of, many things, but that being one of them. And you know what I'm going to say? We said this last time. I probably won't know truly until the very end. Like, I think I know
Yeah.
how I'm going to vote. But like every day something comes up and I'm like, okay, I'm just praying about it every day. But it would have to be something really, 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 really big to change my mind. But I'm just saying, like, I'm always like, I'm that person that's always like, I'm going to just keep taking in the information,
Right.
because I want to make the best educated decision I can. Anyway, where was I going with that?
How are you going to vote based on what we were just talking about? With
Yeah, I think I
advocating
was
for
just
women's
saying, yeah, just the women saying being our own advocates. I'm just sort of back where you were like talking about saying you're not pregnant. What? What do you mean? So the only way you know you're not pregnant is if, you know that you know that you know. And I'm just going to say, because you weren't having sex. So, because even if you were having sex and you were on birth control, there would still be, but you're like, nope, I absolutely know that I'm not pregnant. And I can't believe that happened. So this is huge. Like, this is huge story right here.
Angie, I was in so much pain. I was so sick. I was so sick. Actually, I ended up in the emergency room that night.
Could you have died? Was it that bad? Or do you not know?
It was bad. It was bad. But they wanted to keep me like at the hospital and all the things. And
was this?
But
This
then
wasn't
you also
the last
know,
one, right? This wasn't no, because that one you said you can take a lot of pain. I can take a lot of pain too.
Right.
But when you are saying, I can't take this pain anymore, that was pretty bad. But that was a different.
That was really bad. Yeah. But yeah, when I just think about it, like literally, it was 15 years of unnecessary, like, suffering. And, some people say, well, that's a newer procedure. It's like, no, that procedure's been around for more than 20 years now.
Yeah.
So it's not new. Yeah, it's not new.
So, okay, so how we change that is having these conversations, sharing our stories like this, educating ourselves, being our advocates, voting for people that are going to represent women, because it forever and ever and ever and ever, we haven't been. I do believe we're waking up. We are evidence of waking up. Books like Invisible Women. Thank you. Those aren't the first of them, it's interesting to me even to look back and go, well, this book's maybe been around a long time, or feminists, for instance, have been talking about stuff for a long time, and it's 2024 before Angie Gray is catching on. So things don't happen overnight, but we continue to gather each other through story and sharing our experiences and continuing to learn. And, it is shifting. I feel it. We're right now having a woman, even just having a woman that has the opportunity to be the president of the United States is humongous.
It is. Absolutely.
I want to ask you about reading the book also. So again, making it clear from our joint perspective that we're not throwing anyone under the bus. I don't think that men maliciously, for 99.9% of the population aren't maliciously doing anything. And we're here to talk about those that aren't maliciously doing anything, just an ingrained mindset and lack of whatever. What would you even call that? I don't even know. What do you call it? Not lack of awareness or we just...
And training too.
Yeah, training. I don't know how it got started, where we were second-class citizens. I don't know where that began or how it began or whatever. But the impact that it has had on every single layer is just fascinating to me. And I find myself in conversations where I'm like getting these little glimmers of, oh, well, that's connected,
Yeah.
I'm just like waking up. I just feel like I'm really in this space. I'm really waking up. It's a lot of fun. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think also, like, this is a conversation for another time, but sometimes you have to follow the money.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yes. So is that the 1% of that was not an accurate data giving thing, that 99.9% that are not malicious? I'm sure there are a lot of things happening that I know I'm not aware of, but yes, following the money,
Yeah.
Yes, let's make sure that is a conversation.
For sure.
And that'll probably for sure come up in the book too. I wanted to share a personal experience I had, and this will be sort of, it's about women's health, but it's my experience was, when I got my tubes tied, I wasn't going to do that. There was this new procedure. I don't know how long ago. It was after Daniel was born, so 18 years ago, 19 years ago. We knew we were done having kids, and again, not throwing anyone under the bus, kind of, wink, wink. No, it's still a discussion with my husband and I. But, I said, hey, can you get a vasectomy?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, absolutely not. No one get mad at my husband. This is a personal thing that we have our own conversations about. But he was at the time, so Daniel's 18 years. So 18 years ago, still growing up myself, and he and I growing up in our relationship together. He definitely came from his way of being brought up. I came from mine, and trying to make that all work out is, as y'all know that are married, that is a challenge. But anyway, I said, can you get a vasectomy? And he was like, no way, Jose. And, I wasn't very happy about it, but I was like, okay. And this is in Dr. Mary Claire Haver's. You heard it in the menopause video. If you guys want to know what that is, if you don't already know, you can ask us in the comments and we'll share that link. It's a great podcast. But anyway, he would not do it. So I went in and I was getting this thing where it was a new thing. And Dr. Oh my gosh, I love her. Dr. Hines, an amazing doctor that I had for a very long time. She did amazing actual things for women's health, hormone replacement therapy before anybody was talking about it. She has died since and is very, very missed. But anyway, she was my doctor at the time and said that there's this new procedure to do, not a tubal ligation, but something. And it's not uncommon to do now. At the time, it was brand new. I was going to be her very first person to do it with.
Wow.
Totally trusted her and said, okay. So I went in and did it. Well, it didn't go well. And Todd was in waiting for me. And they came in and they said, whoever it was, a nurse or maybe it was Dr. Hines. And she came in and she said, hey, this isn't working out. I was bleeding too much or something. And we're going to either need to do the tubal ligation or whatever the other choice was, which would have been nothing, I guess, no solve of the not being able to get pregnant thing.
Okay.
And so, Todd didn't know what to do. So he's like, yeah, just go ahead and do it. So I can't tell you. So having your tubes tied, come to find out now, I was right in the way that I had thought the things that I knew back then are actually true, that getting your tubes tied can cause issues with your period being hard, more challenging, more difficult, and some other things. So that was a thing in our marriage. Like, man, it would have been a nothing for you to do this. And here I had to go and have a surgery. It went bad. You ended up making a decision for me that I didn't get to have anything to do with. I know he did his best, but
Absolutely.
a lot of things like that. And it just goes so layered, like, I don't know, just all of it. And I will say too, that all the things that we're talking about, for me, I'm always thinking too of my boys, how important it is for our 4 boys, to understand what their women, their partners are experiencing so that we can be better. It's not just us that need to learn. Just us. It's all of us, men and women together. So I'm really proud of them too for
you
being
got some great
open to
boys.
learn. I do. And you've raised some pretty great boys. Your nephews are pretty amazing human beings. We hope we're going to bring nephews and people that we love and respect on to our podcast, and so that'll be coming soon. What do you want to say about the election and anything that we've been talking about before?
Really, I just say, just make informed decisions. Like that's the major thing. Make informed decisions.
Yep.
Figure out what's important to you, and make an informed decision.
Yeah, I love that. And you said that last week, and I think that's why we wanted to talk about this book, just raising awareness, have the conversations with your families, with your friends, not having an agenda, be curious, Talk about things that matter. Like Rashawn said, know the issues that are important to you. You had a great suggestion last time in making that list. What are the things that are most important to you? What are the things that you can control? And then, like for me, just I'm going to take it all in, and then at the day of voting, I will trust myself that I have done what I can, and that I'm going to make the best decision I can in that moment. And I'm blessing everybody else, Everybody else is doing their best to do so as well. And still have the conversations. We're not done having conversations. We have at this point, after this podcast taping or recording, we have 2 more weeks before voting time. No, 3. 3 more weeks. So I'm not sure if we'll get out another podcast before it happens, but happy voting, everyone. Get out there and vote. Voting. And thanks for listening.
All right. Thank you.
See you next time.
All right. Bye-bye.